In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
Good morning. I could surely talk a lot more about the things we talked about yesterday. That love in the Spirit, it just naturally happens. It has to happen. When you come alive with the grace of God, then the love of God just naturally pours into your spirit and you move with the love of God. But what I want us to see from yesterday, I don't think I emphasized nearly enough, that as we get a hold of, or rather as it gets a hold of us, this word of truth, this gospel of grace, it says, the grace of God that comes to us in truth. When you get a hold of that, then the gospel bears fruit and increases, it says, through us. You remember from yesterday, beginning the end of verse 5, the word of truth, the gospel, which has come to you, just as in the world also, is constantly bearing fruit and constantly increasing. Now, are you listening? This is where I should have emphasized more. Even as it has been doing in you since the day you heard of it. See, he brings fruit from the gospel, and he brings increase in that fruit through believing believers, through you and me, as we get a hold of this grace of God that comes to us in truth, the gospel. Well, let's pick up there in verses 9 and 10. It says this, "For this reason also, since the day we heard of it, we have not ceased to pray for you and to ask that you may be filled," are you listening? "with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and all spiritual understanding." Then it goes on to say, "so that you will walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, to please him in all respects, and to bear fruit in every good work, increasing in the knowledge of God." Does anybody want to live a life that is worthy of the love of God? A life that walks pleasing to God? Oh, you'll hear the preacher talk about that an awful lot. And he'll tell you, try harder. He'll tell you, look at what you're doing and stop this and start that. But the Word of God says that that life that's pleasing to God, that life that bears fruit, it comes out of the knowledge of God's will, that is a spiritual understanding in wisdom and a spiritual understanding of the truth of the gospel. Oh, it's not about you trying harder. It's about letting the truth of God, that is the gospel that comes to us in Jesus, letting that get a hold of you so that Jesus lives his life through you. And then necessarily your life is pleasing to God and your life bears fruit. Peter said the same thing. In 2 Peter, the first chapter, you'll remember there's a long litany. It talks about how we need to have moral excellence and add to that knowledge and self-control and perseverance and godliness. And we need to add brotherly kindness and even love. And it says if we have those qualities and if they're increasing, then neither are we useless nor unfruitful as we walk in the knowledge of Jesus. But if we don't have those things, see, the preacher will say you better try harder to get those things. But the Word of God said, Peter said, if we don't have those things, look at 2 Peter, 1st chapter, verse 9. "He who lacks these qualities is blind or short-sighted," are you listening? "having forgotten his purification from his former sins." See, you've forgotten the gospel. You've forgotten the truth of why Jesus came. You've forgotten the knowledge of Jesus Christ. You don't have knowledge of God's will. in all spiritual wisdom and spiritual understanding, because God's will is that you are completely wrapped up in the gospel, that you are completely understanding the truth of your forgiveness by God, and that as you walk in that forgiveness, see, behavior bears fruit and behavior pleases God. There's something to behold today. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you.
Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus.